week, we're talking about the building of the Tabernacle. That's what we were reading in the portion. So let's look at source number 1. It says like this, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, and God talked to Moshe saying, Daber el bnei Israel, speak to the Jewish people, Vayikchu li truma me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, and take for me a charitable from every man that wants to donate. Tikchu et trumati, take my truma, take my charity. Vezot ha-truma shetikchu meitam, and this is what you should take from them. Zahav vechesef v'nechoshet, gold and silver and copper. And then what should you do with all of this money? Ve'asu li mikdash, and make for me a tabernacle. Ve'shachanti betocham, and I will dwell amongst them. Kechol asher ani mareh otcha, everything that I show you, et tavnit ha-mishkan, ve'et tavnit kol kelav, v'chen ta'asu. We're going to see according to the plans, and according to the plans that they give you for the house and for the vessel, you should do exactly what I told you. This is this week's parsha. What we're going to be trying to understand is the main point of the Sicha, and it is important to understand this. Where is this happening chronologically? Where is this command?
If it's before Chet HaEgel,
yeah, that's right. Where chronologically is this happening? So let's look inside at the next page, at page number 4, and we're going to see a couple of things. So the first things we already know, that Pesach happened. Pesach already happened chronologically in the Torah. We already read about it. It happened on the 14th of Nisan. That's when Pesach happened. Then, that's the Pesach sacrifice they brought on the 14th of Nisan. Then on the 15th of Nisan, they started the Exodus. They left Egypt on the 15th of Nisan. Everybody agrees?
Actually, Yudalet ben Arbaim.
That was the Pesach sacrifice.
Start the sacrifice. And
on the 15th, on the 15th they left. On the 15th they left. And then immediately after that, after they left, they started counting the Omer, 50 days. They were counting to Mount Sinai for 50 days. Right? 7 days later, on the 21 of Nisan, it was the splitting of the Red Sea. Then they reached Mount Sinai on number 5. Number 6 is, it says, the giving of the Torah, the 10 Commandments. They heard all the 10 Commandments from God on the 6th. God speaks to the nation. This is Matan Torah, the 6th of Sivan. On the 7th of Sivan, Moshe goes up on the mountain. On the 7th of Sivan. He comes back on 17th of Tammuz with the tablets, and he sees all the people worshipping a golden calf. So he breaks the tablets. That's number 8. Number 9, Moshe asks for forgiveness from God. He goes up to the mountain from the second time. And number 10, Moshe goes up on the mountain a third time with the second tablets. And God writes the second tablets. It's Moshe's stones, and God does the writing on the second tablets. He goes up on Aleph Tishrei, on Rosh Chodesh Elul. He goes up on the mountain. He stays there for 40 days, and he comes back down when? 10th of Tishrei, which is?
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. He comes back down in Yom Kippur.
So you're claiming that he was in the mountain twice or 3 times?
3 times. 3 times. But that's not our discussion.
Okay, no, I don't see the third time here.
3 times. He was 3 times on the mountains.
Okay.
Yud Tishrei, the second time he was asking for forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yud Tishrei is Yom Kippur. That's the thing.
What was the third time?
Came back on Yom Kippur.
To receive the second tablets. He went up with the second tablets.
Oh.
Yeah. The first one he broke.
I see. First he went to, yes.
The first one he broke. Yeah. The second.
The third one was actually getting the tablet.
That's right.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's right. Okay. So let's look at page number 5. בנוגע למעשה המשכן, when it comes to the tabernacle, שאז שייך העניין דבבוא משה אל אוהל מועד, מצינו 3 דעות. So when it comes to the tabernacle, we're going to see there are three opinions, and we're going to concentrate on two opinions, and we're going to try to keep our head clear of what's going on over here. Let's see. First opinion, Shitat Perush Rashi. Rashi, this is, first of all, we're going to learn what Rashi says, simple, to the point, everybody's going to be happy. שגם ציווי הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, Rashi says, I know that it's out of order in the Torah, it's out of, but you should know that when God commanded Moshe, not just Amirat Moshe ibn Israel, not just the time that Moshe told the Jewish people, but also the commandment came al dvar asiyat hamishkan, when God commanded the Jewish people on creating the tabernacle, haya lemacharat Yom Kippurim, was in the end of all the story we just read. It was after Yom Kippur. In other words, nobody knew about the Mishkan until Yom Kippur. Moshe didn't know, nobody knew. After Yom Kippur,
Yom Kippur is when he got the second, and God said, Salachti.
That's a Yom Kippur, when Moshe came back down from the mountain with the second tablets, everybody realized that God forgave them. That's why we commemorate Yom Kippur on that day. So according to Rashi, all the thing happened after Yom Kippur, the commandment of the Mishkan and everything else. לאחרי שנתרצה הקדוש ברוך הוא על חטא העגל. And Rashi explains it wonderfully. It's going to make sense. Look, after God forgave the Jewish people for the sin of the golden calf, ואמר, סלחתי כדבריך, he said, I forgave you guys. ואף שבפרשת תרומה, שבה מדובר אודות יציאת המשכן, קודמת לפרשת תישא, שבה מדובר אותו חטא העגל, it said, but I don't understand. You see, it is written in the Torah that the Mishkan story is before the sin of the golden calf. So Rashi says, I know that in the Torah, when you read the story, it looks like the Mishkan comes before the golden calf, but you should know it's not, it doesn't. And there's a rule. How do I know it doesn't? The rule applies to many places in the Torah, because Rashi says, En mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. The Torah sometimes is not in order. There are many times that the Torah is not in order. And this is one of the times that the Torah is not in order. So don't get excited that it comes before. That's what Rashi says. Let's look at source number 2. Vayiten el Moshe. It says, and he gave to Moshe. So Rashi says, En mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. There's no early and late in the Torah. Maaseh ha'egel קודם לציווי מלאכת המשכן ימים רבים. It says the whole story with the golden calf happened before this whole story with the tabernacle many days. And then he explained, שהרי בי"ז בתמוז נשתברו הלוחות, because in the 17th of Tammuz Moshe broke the tablets. וביום הכיפורים נתרצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לישראל, and God forgave the Jewish people on Yom Kippur, which is 10th of Tishrei. ולמחרת התחילו בנבט המשכן, והוקם באחד בניסן. The next day, Moshe came and says, we have to build the tabernacle. And then the tabernacle took 6 months to erect. And the first of Nisan, that's when they actually constructed it. First of all, if you look at number 6, we're going on the left-hand side, this is the way it's written in the Torah. In other words, let's read it quickly. This is the chronological order according to the Torah. The birth of Moses, his journey to Egypt to free the Jewish nation, and the 10 plagues. That happened first. Then we read about the exodus from Egypt and splitting of the Red Sea. That's number 2. Number 3 is the giving of the first set of tablets at Mount Sinai. So far we're the same. You see Rashi's opinion next to it? It's exactly the same. Over here it's going to be different. On the 4th it says God commands Moses to build the tabernacle, and Rashi says no. The sin of the golden calf come first. And then the sin of the golden calf, according to the Torah, and then God commands Moses to build the tabernacle and this is Rashi's opinion. Actually that is wrong, because that's only after coming down from the mountain, after Yom Kippur. So 4 and 6 should be interchanged over here, it's a mistake. But that's the idea. And just interchange number 4 and 6. It's a mistake, I have to fix it. In other words, it's like this. So let's say we're going to understand what's going on. Rashi says, God commanded, and they raised the money, and the construction, all three things happened when? After Yom Kippur. The whole thing is happening in the end. After the sin of the golden calf, after Yom Kippur.
God salach.
That's God. This is part of the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And
Forgiveness. And
yeah.
then
The question is, if you ask Rashi, why are you building the tabernacle? Why is the tabernacle getting built?
he will tell you.
What's the answer?
The Hashem salach leIsrael.
Oh, so it looks like Rashi is saying the reason why we're building the temple, it's in part of the atonement of the golden calf. In other words, what is it? The Jewish people need some kind of let go. They're not happy with just a God which is spiritual in the air. When they have a God which is spiritual in the air, what do? They're starting making idols. So I'll give them something to do. I'll give them sacrifices. I'll give them something to do, and then they'll be fine. Right? That's why it looks by Rashi. Most commentators say it this way. But let's continue. Source number 3. We're going to go to Midrash Tanchuma and see how they learn it. So it says, Midrash Tanchuma asks a question. ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם. It says, and they should make for me a tabernacle so that I can dwell inside the Jewish people. מתי נאמרה למשה הפרשה הזו של משכן? And Midrash Tanchuma asks a question. When was Moshe told to build the Mishkan? So this says, ביום הכיפורים עצמו. It was said in Yom Kippur. אף על פי שפרשת המשכן קודמת למעשה העגל, even though in the Torah the building of the tabernacle comes before the golden calf. אמר רבי יהודה ברבי שלום, רבי יהודה, the son of Rabbi Shalom says, אין מוקדם ומאוחר בתורה. There's no early and late when it comes to chronological order in the Torah. It looks like Rashi is agreeing with Midrash Tanchuma. שנאמר, because it says, נאו מעגלותיה לא תדע, ומטולטלות הן שביליה של תורה ופרשתיה. It means that many times you find in the Torah that the parshiyot, it is written out of chronological order. It's not the only time. הווה ביום הכיפורים נאמר למשה ועשו לי מקדש. So in other words, the whole thing was told to Moshe after Yom Kippur, not like it says in the Torah before the egel, before the golden calf. So it says, I'm going to explain to you why. Why is this? Why is it after Yom Kippur? So it says, כדי שידעו כל האומות, because this way all the nations are going to know שנתכפר להם על מעשה העגל, that nobody is going to be able to say that God never forgave the Jewish people for the golden calf. It says, this is a proof that God, the Mishkan, the tabernacle is a proof that God forgave the people for the golden calf. ולכן נקרא משכן העדות. This is why it's called the tabernacle of testimony. What's the testimony? The testimony that I forgave them. שהוא עדות לכל באי העולם. It says, because if I wouldn't forgive them, I wouldn't come back. I wouldn't come back to the tabernacle. The fact that I came back to the tabernacle, God says, is a proof that what? That I forgave the Jewish people.
Makes sense.
Everybody's happy this way. Okay, let's look at source number 4. בכמה עניינים של מלאכת המשכן כבר כתב רש"י שהוא בגלל העגל, לכפר על מעשה העגל. So now we're trying to understand Rashi. We're on page 7 in the bottom, source number 4. So Rashi says the Mishkan is directly correlated, the tabernacle is directly correlated to the golden calf. There's a direct correlation between two. They're connected. How? בתחילת פרשת כי תישא, in the beginning of פרשת כי תישא, שנצטוו למנותם, when they were commanded to count the Jewish people, בתחילת נדבת המשכן, אחר מעשה העגל, it was in the beginning of the building of the Mishkan, after the golden calf. What happened? Why he was commanded to count the Jewish people? Because God was killing the Jewish people. Because of the golden calf, they were all killed. Not all, many of them were killed by God. מפני שנכנס בהם מגפה. And number 2, בפרשת תצווה, in the next parasha, לקח פר אחד, we see that there's a connection. Aaron was taken to take one bull, לקורבן כחלק מתהליך משיכת והכתרת אהרון ובניו בתור כהנים. This is how you're going to make Aaron into a high priest, and you have to take a bull. Perush Rashi, and Rashi explains, you know what the bull is for? Why does Aaron have to pay a bull? Because he sinned with the bull, so therefore this bull comes to atone for the sin of the golden calf. שזה בא לכפר על מעשה העגל שהוא פר. And number 3, כמו כן התלמוד ירושלמי אומר, the same thing the Yerushalmi Talmud says, ועשית כפורת זה טהור. When you make the ark, and you make a covering for the ark, you should make it pure gold. So it says, why it's the pure gold? יבוא זהבו של כפורת ויכפר על מעשה העגל. The word for covering of the ark is kaporet. And kaporet means lechaper, to atone. So it says it was a golden atonement, it was a golden covering, to atone for the golden calf. That's what it says. So you see that Rashi says there's a direct correlation between the Mishkan, the ark, and everything to the sin of the golden calf. כל זה לא שייך אלא לאחר מעשה העגל. And it says, and this is why Rashi tells you, it's all this, when is the connection between? It's only after they sinned, after God forgave them. So after God forgave them, it makes sense for God to tell them, here, I'm forgiving you. How am I forgiving you? By bringing the bull, by making the ark, by making the tabernacle, by me dwelling in the tabernacle, this is a forgiveness. And therefore, it says, אי אפשר שנאמר לפני כן. It's not possible that it was said beforehand. לכן רש"י אומר, therefore, רש"י says, שהציווי על מעשה המשכן נאמר רק לאחר חטא העגל. That the commandment of the Mishkan was only after the sin of the golden calf. והעובדה שהפרשה של ציווי בניית המשכן נכתבה לפני הסיפור, so how come God decided to write it before על חטא העגל? אין בעיה. It says don't worry about it. It's not a problem that God decided to write it before. Why? משום, because we have a rule, אין מוקדם ומאוחר בתורה. God doesn't write it according to chronological order. There's a reason why he wrote it before. We're not even going to discuss it now, but you don't have to read it chronologically. That's the way we understand Rashi. In other words, according to Rashi says the tabernacle is only because of the golden calf. That's one way to understand this. We're going to now try to understand it two other ways, completely different, and then try to bring all three of them together and to see how the Alter Rebbe understands it with the explanation of the Rebbe, that is really one of those things that if you concentrate and you think about it, you're going to say, wow, that's right. The Rebbe comes and says, this is on page 8 in the bottom, שיטה ממוצעת שציווי הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה היה מיד לאחרי מתן תורה. We're going to learn an intermediary way. This is, by the way, the Ramban's way. Not Rambam, not Maimonides, Nachmonides. This is the Ramban's way. And he says שציווי הקדוש שלך למשה היה מיד לאחרי מתן תורה. It says God commanded Moshe immediately after Matan Torah. It says you know why it says the parasha after Matan Torah? Because it happened after Matan Torah. It's exactly in the chronological order. אבל אמירת משה לישראל הייתה לאחרי חטא העגל. But you know when Moshe told it to the Jewish people? Moshe told this commandment to the Jewish people when? After the sin of the golden, after Yom Kippur, after God forgave them. So even though he was told before, he was told before the golden calf, but he told the Jewish people, Moshe told the Jewish people after Yom Kippur. כסדר הכתובים בפרשת תרומה. It says this is exactly like in this parasha, in Parshat Terumah. By the way, this is not our discussion, but just to think for ourselves. Rashi usually explains the easiest way. I like the Ramban's way better than Rashi's way. The Ramban's way makes sense more than Rashi ways because you don't have to say that it is not early and late in the Torah. Even Rashi doesn't like to say there's early and late in the Torah. When does Rashi say when there's early and late in the Torah? Rashi says there's early and late in the Torah when he doesn't have a choice, when something doesn't really make sense. But in the simple explanation, what doesn't make sense? How come Rashi doesn't learn it this way? God told him on Mount Sinai, the first time he went up on the mountain, about the Mishkan. He came back down from the mountain. He saw the golden calf. He said, now I'm going to tell them about the Mishkan. He broke the tablets. Then he had to do tshuva. And then when he came back the second time, he told them about it. Easy. A child understands it. Everybody should be happy. Why Rashi doesn't like it?
Doesn't fit.
It fits according to everything. It fits according to the chronological order. It makes sense.
If he would make a sin, he wouldn't ask him to build the Mishkan.
So don't learn it this way. Learn it like the Ramban learns it. That has nothing to do with the Mishkan. The Mishkan he would have told him to do anyway.
Doesn't it make sense that if he gave the Torah, he gave the laws to build the Mishkan?
Yeah, very good. If he gave the Torah, he gave the laws to build the Mishkan. To a 5-year-old, that's a better answer than this whole thing out of order. So the answer just in short, just for us to understand, Rashi knows that the 5-year-old is going to ask you a question. Why didn't, if Moshe was commanded about the tabernacle, why he keeps it a secret? If he is commanded it, what does he has to do? He has to tell them.
Like
And
he didn't tell him until Friday, the manna. That he didn't tell him that that's double power.
Okay,
Friday.
Okay, but over here, there's an Indian to do it immediately. It's not, what are you keeping it for? It's not important, the tabernacle, tell them immediately. That's why Rashi doesn't like it. Okay? But the Ramban says, I like it this way. ציווי הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה על דבר המשכן פרשת תשא. Then it has, in other words, before the sin of the golden calf, there's the commandment to Moshe. Then there's the Chet HaEgel. Then there's the sin of the golden calf. ובפרשת ויקהל אמירת משה לבני ישראל לדבר המשכן. And only in פרשת ויקהל, after Yom Kippur, Moshe tells the nation about this commandment. Okay, and this is Nachmanides' way. Let's read it on page number 9. והנה משה אחר שציווה לאהרון והנשיאים וכל בני ישראל האנשים, Moshe, after he commanded Aaron and all the leaders of the tribes and all the Jewish people, כל אשר דיבר השם איתו בהר סיני אחר שיבור הלוחות, everything that God talked to him on הר Sinai after he broke the tablets, ונתן על פניו מסווה, and he gave on his face a covering, חזר וציווה והקהילו אליו כל העדה אנשים. He gathered everybody together. וייתכן שהיה זה ביום מחרת רידתו. And it said it's possible it was the next day after he came down from the mountain. ואמר לכולם עניין המשכן אשר נצטווה בו מתחילה קודם שיבור הלוחות. And he told them after Yom Kippur the commandment that he received before. Not on after Yom Kippur. He received the commandment when? Before. Just like the way it's written in the Parsha. כי כיוון שנתרצה להם הקדוש ברוך הוא, he told them, since God forgave you, ונתן לו הלוחות השניות, and he gave the second commandment, the second tablets, וקראתי עמו ברית חדשה שילך השם בקרבם, and he make with them a new covenant, and then God is going to dwell in the Jewish people, הנה חזרו לקדמותם, they returned to the original state, they were again loved God and God loved them, ולאהבת כלולותם, they remarried, ובידוע שתהיה שכינתו בתוכם כעניין שציווהו תחילה, and then God dwelled in them from the beginning. כמו שאמר, לקיצץ, ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם, לקיצץ, and they should make me a tabernacle, and I dwelt amongst them, ולכן ציווה אותו משה עתה בכל מה שמצווה תחילה. And this is why Moshe commanded them now. So the Ramban says, we have to keep a head over here, because we'll have to put everything together. The Ramban says, that the commandment was before the golden calf. But Moshe told the nation after Yom Kippur. Okay. So according to the Ramban, everything flows fine. It makes sense and everything is chronological order. Everybody is happy according to the Ramban. Okay. Now the Rebbe is going to come and bring a third opinion. And the third opinion is that of the Zohar. And we're going to see the Zohar. Once you learn the Zohar, you look at Rashi, and you look at the Ramban, and you say, even in Pshat, the Zohar is better both than Rashi and the Ramban. Yeah? And the Zohar is not, it's supposed to be an esoterical book, but it's going to make sense to us now, according to the Zohar. So let's try to understand the Zohar, and see how the Zohar explains this whole thing again. Shitat Zohar says, this is what the Zohar explains. We are on page 11. שמוכחת גם מפשוטו של מקרא. And the Rebbe says, and by the way, the Zohar is the easy explanation. You can explain it to a 5-year-old too, once you learn this Zohar this way. Even though the Zohar is Kabbalistic. Says how? שהן ציווי הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה. The Zohar says, guys, you don't understand what's going on over here. God commanded the Jewish people before the sin of the golden calf. והן אמירת משה לבני ישראל היו מיד לאחר מתן תורה. And Moshe told the Jewish people when? Also then, immediately when God told him, he told the Jewish people. And you know what else happened? And they started building it. Before the golden calf. Everything was before the golden calf, he says. And he has a proof. The Zohar is a beautiful proof, and you're going to look at the Zohar's proof. You're going to say, how I didn't think about it. It's simple. קודם חטא העגל. How? וראיה לדבר. And it says, I bring you a proof, the Zohar says. You know what's my proof? שהרי במעשה העגל, it says, look, when Aaron was trying to, delay them from building the golden calf, what does it say over there? It says, Lemi hazahav. It says, who has gold? Right? Everybody remembers it. It says, who has gold? So it says, so what did the people do? Va'itparku et nizmei hazahav asher beoznehem. It says, and they took the golden earrings that was in their earrings. In other words, what did they took for gold for the golden calf? Their jewelry. And here comes the Zohar. And he says, I'll prove to you from that the commandment to build the Mishkan was before. It says, how? ולכאורה, the Zohar says, למה הוצרכו בני ישראל להתפרק מתכשיטיהם? Why did they need to give their jewelry? בא בשעה שהיה להם ריבוי זהב מבזת מצרים. We just learned 2 weeks ago. Everybody had donkeys and donkeys and donkeys of jewels and gold and silver from Egypt. We learned that 2 weeks ago, you remember? Maybe more, 3 weeks ago. So it says, what do you mean? Where's all the gold? Why did they have to ring the jewelry in their earrings?
They already donated it for the Tabernacle.
Very good. From here the Zohar explains, וכמו שכתוב, וישאלו כלי זהב וינצות מצרים, it says they have all kinds of gold from Egypt. ועוד יותר מביזת הים, and they had even more gold from the sea, if you remember, after the Egyptians drowned. כפי שמצינו במדרשי חכמינו ז"ל, like we find by our sages, אודות מספר החמורים שיוצרך כל אחד מישראל, כי יסוד הרירוש מגדול. So it says, why does the Torah tells you, you know what they took, which gold they took? Who cares which gold? They took the gold that they had and they gave it. But it says, no. It says they took specifically what? Their jewelry in the earrings. It says, who gives their jewelry in the earrings?
When there's nothing left to give.
Oh, the only reason they were giving the jewelry in the earrings because there was nothing else to give. Because they already what? Gave everything else. ומזה מוכח, from here the Zohar proofs, שקודם מעשה העגל נצטוו כבר לסיעת המשכן. That even before the golden calf, they already were commanded on the building of the Mishkan. והביאו, and not only commanded, they were good Jews. You know how much good Jews they were, the Zohar explains? They gave all the gold. They none of the gold remained by them. In other words, they understood that what's the purpose of gold?
It's for Hashem.
The purpose of gold to Hashem. So they gave all their gold to God, except
Everything left is their own jewelry.
exactly. This one they
They
received.
didn't have any gold.
This they received from the grandmother, and this they received from their uncle. Things that are important, that have a meaning to them, they kept a little bit for them, for a memory of the old grandmother. But everything else, they gave away. והביאו את כל הזהב לנבואת המשכן, they gave everything for the tabernacle, ונשארו להם רק התכשיר חיטים שעל גופם. And the Zohar explains, look, and the verses say it, they only had what? The earrings. וכמבואר בתור האור, דיבור המתחיל פתח אליהו. The Zohar explained, look in the Zohar explained, the Rebbe explains, look in תור האור, דיבור מתחיל לך. בעניין תיקון התכשיט, שהוא המייפה את האדם שמתקשט בו, ומתנאה שמתאחד עם תכשיט זה, כאילו לפגוע ממש. There's a whole Indian, in white learning, that's why it says that an ornament makes the person more beautiful. It says, without the ornament, it enhances the beauty of the person. But that will leave for some other time. ולכן במעשה העגל לא הייתה להם ברירה ליתן תכשיטיהם. So therefore, when it comes to the golden calf, they had no choice. The all gold that they had was what? Was the jewelry. Okay. Beautiful, right? According to the Zohar. And then, according to the Zohar, everything makes sense chronological order. You don't have to go like Rashi.
Yeah.
Chronological order, everything is good. You don't have to go out of your way. But wait, it's going to become problematic. כאין זה, like this it says, כל הזהב העשוי למלאכה. It says, all the gold that is befitting for work. מה הפירוש העשוי? What does it mean that's befitting? So it says, God is going to, and look at the way the Zohar explains it. So Zohar explains in a beautiful manner, exactly the opposite of Rashi. It's exactly 180 degrees from Rashi, the opposite. הסתכל, כאן הסתכל הקדוש ברוך הוא כשנתנו ישראל הזהב לעגל, it says God saw the future. And he saw that the Jewish people are going to give the gold to what? They're going to build an idol. So he says, I need to save them before they do the sin. So in other words, God prepared the medicine before the sickness.
Because they couldn't use that gold for the Mishkan.
That's right. It says, otherwise, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to prove to the world, I know my nation, they're going to sin, but I'm going to prove to the world that they were willing to give the gold to me more than they're willing to give to the golden calf, because otherwise they'll be in trouble. I'll have to kill them. So it says, כשנתנו ישראל הזהב לעגל, והקדוש ברוך הוא הקדים להם הזהב הזה לרפואה. So over here, God puts the medicine before the disease. Before the golden calf came and he punished them, he already had the medicine ready. What was the medicine? That the Mishkan is built. That's the medicine.
They collect the...
They collect it.
But they collect all the gold already.
In other words, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the building. Let's call it this way. שאת הזהב הזה של המשכן הקדים להם לאותו זהב שנתנו לעגל. So he says, now the gold that they gave to the tabernacle was before the gold they gave for the idol worship. כי כל הזהב שהיה מהם ונמצא מהם ניתנו לתרומות המשכן, because they gave the entire gold to what? To the tabernacle. So, יעלה על דעתך, it's going to come on your mind, שכאשר עשו את העגל, נמצא עמהם זהב. So it says, it will come to your mind that when they made the calf, they would have with them gold, והם יפרקו אוזניהם לקח את הזהב ההוא, and they were going to give their mother's jewelry instead of that gold? Of course not. First they will give the gold and then their mother's jewelry. דכתיב ויתפרקו כל העם את נזמי הזהב אשר באוזניהם, and they said, and all the nation took the gold out of the ears, ועל זה הקדים את זהב התרומה לכפר על מעשה זה. And on this they brought the zahav of the truma in order to atone for these things.
And I wonder how Rashi can answer this.
Wait for Rashi. Now comes the difficult part. Now we're going to have the difficult part. Yeah. What we're going to now try to understand is like this. So according both to the Zohar and according to the Rashi, both of them, the building of the Mishkan have to do with what? With the golden calf. But both, Rashi says after the fact, it's the atonement after the fact, and the Zohar said the atonement is before the fact. That's the argument.
Well, it has a connection.
Yeah, both of them have a connection of building the tabernacle to the golden calf. Now comes the Rebbe, and he's going to turn everything upside down. The Rebbe comes and he says, I've got a better idea for you guys. Not like Rashi.
Good, because I don't like
Not like Zohar. Not like anybody else. And he learns it from the Alter Rebbe, by the way. It says, it is impossible to say that the only reason that the Jewish people who built the tabernacle was because of idol worship. It says, both according to the Zohar and according to Rashi, it comes up that if the Jewish people would not have sinned in the golden calf, they would never get the commandment of the tabernacle. The Rebbe said it's impossible. The tabernacle would have been built nothing to do with what? With the golden calf. It's got nothing to do with it. Why are you mixing the two things together? Because what is a tabernacle? Let's understand.
It's a biblical commandment, a Torah law.
Oh, first of all, it's a Torah law. It's written in the Torah, so it must be a Torah law. But second of all, in Jewish law, what is building the tabernacle? Building the tabernacle is what a Jew is supposed to do. It's the mission of the Jewish nation. What's our mission? To go and take the physical world and make it a godly place. That's building of the tabernacle. That's what it represents. And it says, and the Zohar knows it. The Zohar knows that what? Building the tabernacle is what a Jew is supposed to do every day of his life. He's supposed to go out into this world, take physical things, domem, tzomeach, chai. He's supposed to take inanimate objects like gold, beams like wood, animals, sacrifices, and he's supposed to do what with them? Elevate them to godliness. That's a purpose. You want to tell me that without the sin of the golden calf we wouldn't have the Jewish purpose? So let's continue.
But I heard the anarchist, because Shechanti betocham, in one of them, and you don't have the temple. Because V'shachanti betocham, each one of the Jew before Chet HaEgel, I can V'shachanti betocham.
What does the Mishkan represent? The Mishkan represents the Jewish mission. The Jewish people, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to build a tabernacle to God. How do you do a tabernacle? By the way, V'shachanti betocham, how am I going to be V'shachanti betocham? When a Jew does commandments. How does a Jew does commandments? With what? The only way to do a commandment is what? Is to take a physical object and do the commandment. This is what it means, a tabernacle. Take physicality. Tefillin, you have to take a car. You cannot do tefillin with, think about tefillin. Every commandment that we have has to be in the physical world. It says that's Judaism. So let's see. So we did say all of them had connection to the golden calf, both Rashi and Zehu. What? Where's the gun? It's gone. The Romans took it. The Greeks took it. Vehine. So we are on page 14. And now we're going to learn it according to Kabbalah. And according to the Kabbalistic way of the Alter Rebbe, we're going to understand this whole matter in a whole different mindset. Vehine moda'at zot שהאבות הן המרכבה. It says you should know the forefathers were the chariots to God. What does it mean the forefathers were a chariot to God? The forefathers and Moshe were the same. It means when God wanted them to do something, they didn't need to think about it. Immediately they were a conduct to do that. They were tzaddikim, righteous person. A righteous person, when God wants him to move, he moves. He doesn't ask. It's a kippon of God, that's right. שכל ימיהם לעולם לא הפסיקו, אפילו שעה אחת, מלקשר דעתן ונשמתן לריבון העולמים, that every second of their life, they were completely connected to God. A tzaddik, a complete righteous person. בביטול הנזכר לעיל, completely nullified, which means they didn't feel themselves. They never felt, Abraham never felt I. He never felt the experience that you say, I am sick, I am zeu. He never had an ego to think even I in his life. He was an extension of God. ואחריהם כל הנביאים, and after them, all the prophets. Now, all the prophets went in the level of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, or Moshe necessarily, but each one according to his level. They were tzaddikim. כל אחד לפי מדרגת נשמתו והשגתו. Everybody according to the level that he had. ומדרגת משה רבנו עליו השלום היא העולה על כולנה. And Moshe had the highest level. שאמרו עליו, that it says, Moshe didn't talk. Who talked? God talked from Moshe's throat. In other words, the voice that came out of Moshe he wasn't translating God. He was saying what God was saying. When God was saying, he was saying. And this is what happened. Look how beautiful it's going to be now. This is what happened in Matan Torah. What happened in Matan Torah? In Matan Torah, the Jewish people came to Moshe.
Don't let God talk.
Before. And he says, we want the experience.
Hashem talk to us.
We want the experience. We want what? In other words, you took us out of Egypt. What does it mean to take us out of Egypt? Let's talk Tanya. You took us out of our physical boundaries. In other words, 50 days we were working, we were refining all our animal soul. In other words, we refined it completely. We have no more animal soul. Right now, we're on the level of whom?
Of righteous, of Moshe.
Of Moshe Rabbeinu. We're in your level. We're in Moshe Rabbeinu's level, it says. So therefore, we want to go to the mountain also. In other words, we want God to talk to us. ומעין זה זכו ישראל במעמד הר סיני. And the Jewish people merited that level that God talked to them like a prophet at Mount Sinai. What was the problem though?
They couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it, that's right. It was too much light. They thought they are on the level of a righteous person, and all of a sudden discovered, unfortunately, there's levels. There's level to righteousness. Maybe, according to our level, it's called righteous, but it's not Moshe's level. There's levels in these games. There's a level. And what happened to them? They passed away after the first commandment and after the second commandment. רק שלא יכלו לסבול. כמאמר רז"ל שעל כל דרבור פרחה נשמתן. So they passed away after the first commandment and the second commandment. And what does it mean they passed away? They passed away means they were so nullified to such an extent that what happened?
They weren't there.
That their souls returned to the Creator. They went back to the source. They were part of God, and they returned to be part of God. And God was saying, excuse me, what's the purpose of the world?
Down here.
The purpose of the world is to make for me what?
Dwelling here.
A tabernacle down in this world. But here comes the problem. If you're going to fill me down here in this world, if every time, so where God said, I put myself, where? Down here in this physical world. But if you're going to fill me every time you do a commandment, you know what's going to happen to you?
I'm going to die.
You're going to die. You're not a righteous person. So, let's see what happened. שהוא עניין ביטול במציאות. You're going to be completely nullified. להם לעשות לו משכן ובו. So it says, so now they were all disappointing. They're telling God, we thought we're going out to Egypt to become a Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what we thought we're coming out of Egypt, to become righteous. And you, God, all of a sudden come and you pour water all over our head. And you tell us, guys, you guys are what? Never going to be righteous. Not happening. You're never going to be in that level. Ever. None of you. Moshe, yes. Even, by the way, who went up to the mountain? Not even the elders. Not even Yoshua. Only Moshe. Only Moshe. All of you guys, you second rate. You guys, you're not. So they were thinking, hey, we're not Jews. So he says, on the contrary, I'll give you a place where I am found just as much, if not more than with Moshe. Where is that place? Down here in this physical world. Make for me a tabernacle. Take the physicality of the world. That's where I am. I'm not going to let you feel me, because if you feel me, what's going to happen? You're going to die. But I'm going to give you a tabernacle down here. And you should know that where am I? I'm dwelling where? In this tabernacle. Ubo kodshei kodashim. In this tabernacle, you have the Holy of Holies. The holiest thing is inside this tabernacle. להשראת שכינתו שהוא גילוי ייחודו יתברך. This is what God revealed. Page 15, the Rebbe continues and says, ובעניין זה יש בירור והכרעה בדברי רבנו הזקן בתניא פרק ל"ד. And the Rebbe says, and you can learn all this from chapter 34 in the Tanya. What does it say in chapter 34 in the Tanya? בנוגע לעניין דאהבות הן המרכבה, it says when it comes to some people that are righteous, they become a chariot of God, ששייך גם לעבודת כל אחד מישראל. It says, don't despair. You are also righteous as much as whom? As much as Moshe. You know how? Because you also built the Mishkan. Moshe went up to me, but you can also build the Mishkan. מבאר רבנו הזקן, the Alter Rebbe explains, שמעין זה זכו ישראל במעמד הר סיני. It says they received the level of Moshe Rabbeinu when they went up to Mount Sinai. רק שלא יכלו לסבול, like we said, they died. שעל כל דיבור פרחה נשמתם, שהוא עניין ביטול במציאות הנזכר לעיל. לכן מיד אמר להם לעשות לו משכן ובו קודשי הקודשים להשראת שכינתו, שהוא גילוי ייחודו יתברך. So therefore immediately he told them, I have for you a way out. You want to be on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu? You can be on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. You know how a Jew can be on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu? Turn this physical world into what? Into a dwelling place for God. Take gold, take silver, and turn the gold and silver into a commandment. You just turn it into a dwelling place for God. ומזה מוכח, from here the Rebbe learns, שסביר עליה לאדמו"ר הזקן כשיטת הזוהר. That the Alter Rebbe holds exactly like the Zohar. That what? שמיד לאחרי מתן Torah, that immediately after the Jewish people died, what did God do?
Command on the Mishkan.
היה לו רק ציווי הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה. It wasn't only God commanded Moshe, and then Moshe told the nation after the fact, אלא גם אמירת משה לבני ישראל על דבר עשיית המשכן. It was also the telling of Moshe to the Jewish people on building the Mishkan. But the Alter Rebbe is different than the Zohar. The Zohar says it is in relationship to what? To the sin that's going to come later on. The Alter Rebbe says it has nothing to do with the sin. You know what it's for? Because that's the Jewish mission. It's got nothing to do with the sin. Of course, it will help the sin. Later on, we're going to see. We're going to use it also to atone for the sin. But that wasn't the reason. The reason was because that's what Judaism is all about. Turning this physical world into a dwelling place for God. מיד אמר להם חולו, משום שנשמתם של בני ישראל פרחה, because the Jewish people said, how are we Jews? Only Moshe is a Jew, only he connects to God. Where is our connection to God? לכן משה היה חייב מיד לעשות משהו בשבילם. So immediately Moshe had to appease them. He says, you are also connected to God. Guys, don't worry. You can also get this connection to God. Exactly the same connection that what? That I have, you have also. ולכן הוא מיד העביר להם את הציווי לבניין המשכן. Therefore, immediately, he gave them the commandment to build the tabernacle. Because building the tabernacle is Judaism. וגם בני ישראל מצידם לא יכלו להמתין. והביאו מיד את תמות המשכן. And you can see the behavior of the Jewish nation. Immediately they took all their gold. And what did they do with the gold? They gave it to the Mishkan. They wanted to turn all their physical attributes, all the physical possessions that they had, they wanted to turn it into what? Into spirituality. Just like us, going into this world and turning all the physical things in this world into spirituality. ולהעיר, and to say, שמכאן רואים שגם מחלק הסוד שבתורה יכולים למצוא בירור בנוגע לחלק הפשט. So over here we see the Rebbe says something beautiful. We were learning Kabbalah, we were learning Tanya, and all of a sudden, from the Tanya, it looks like we have a nicer explanation than whose? Than Rashi's explanation and the Rambam's explanation, even Kabbalah's explanation. I like the Alter Rebbe's explanation. It makes sense more than the Kabbalistic explanation of the Zohar. Because the Zohar says, you know why we're having a tabernacle? What's the reason? Because the Jewish people are sinners. That's why we're having a tabernacle. The Alter Rebbe says, you know why we're having a tabernacle? Not because the Jewish people are going to be sinners and we need to take care of them. Because that's the mission of the Jewish people, to turn physicality into spirituality, to turn gold into godliness.
To make the earth suitable for Hashem.
To make the earth, it says, you can't say that this is only because of we are sinners. It says it's a much nicer explanation. So over here we can see that with the Alter Rebbe's explanation, we can see that it also answers also the simple explanation of the verses. I would say, in my mind, it sits better than all other explanations that we had until now.
It's more inspiring to us.
Not only more inspiring, it's more truth.
More
To
legal.
say, what?
More legal. Fits the legal.
It fits the pshat, it fits the legal narrative much nicer. ועניין זה נוגע לעבודת כל אחד מישראל. And this is touches each and every Jew. שאחר שיעמיק האדם מחשבתו בעניין ביטול הנזכר לעיל כפי יכולתו. After a person, this is the message we need to take. After a person tries to nullify himself to God as much as he can, זאת ישיב ליבו. This he should return to his heart. It says, once we try to be a righteous person, after a while, we're going to say, we are never going to get there. Exactly this is what happened to the Jewish people. They said, they came, they wanted to be a righteous person, and they realized that what? That if they will become righteous persons, they become a righteous person like Nadav and Avihu. Like Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron. That they became righteous, what happened to them? They were elevated, they can't contain it. So it says we will never be able to do it. So what happens? כי להיות קטן שכלי. But he says, remember, even though your brain is too weak, ושורש נשמתי מאכיל להיות מרכבה, and the source of my soul, I will never be a chariot to God, like someone like Moshe Rabbeinu, someone like Abraham, someone like Yitzchak, כמו האבות שמזכירם התחילת תפילה באמרו אלוקי אברהם, אי לזאת אעשה לו משכן. He says, nevertheless, that doesn't mean I cannot make for him what? A dwelling place down here in this world. Yes, I can't be righteous. But you know God, where God dwells? Where God dwells? Where in this world? But where in this world?
Oh, in Jerusalem.
Where in this world?
קודש הקודשים.
More than that.
Wait a minute.
Everyone, בתוכם.
Not in us. Not in us.
Hashem, I thought.
Where is Hashem? He dwells in the physical world, the lowest of the low. He dwells in the gold, he dwells in the silver, he dwells in whatever. In that part, you have to go down to the lowest of the low. He says, that's where I am. You know where's the Kodesh HaKodashim? Where's the Mishkan? There, in the gold. The ark had a golden covering, in the gold of the world, in the energy of, that's the energy of the world. That's where you have to go down. That's where I am. הוא ואי לזאת לעשות לו משכן ומכון לשבטו, הוא העסק בתלמוד תורה וקיום מצוות. This is what it means. Learn Torah. By learning Torah, you're changing the physical brain, and by doing commandments, you're taking physical objects and you're elevating them to holiness. כיוון שמשחרב בית המקדש אין עולה הקדוש ברוך הוא עולמו משכן ומכון לשבטו, הוא ייחודו יתברך אל 400 של הלכה. Since the temple is destroyed, all we have in order to connect to God now is to learn Torah and to the commandments. ולכן מיד לאחר הרצו בתפילה, this is why immediately after we daven to God, it's a commandment to learn something, not to run. We daven to God in the morning. Now there's another commandment. We have to take a physical brain, something which is basar vadam, which is flesh and blood, and we have to make him think like whom? To change him. To change our physical brain that is going to start thinking like God. And that's by learn Torah immediately after davening. צריך להיות השוב על ידי לימוד התורה. We need to return to this world. How? By learning Torah and doing commandments. Immediately after we learn Torah, we go out. We cannot just learn Torah all day long and sit over here and learn Torah. After we learn Torah, we have to go out into the world and make to God a dwelling place in the world. Bring godliness into this entire world. And then it makes sense this whole way, the way it's written in the parasha. You don't have to say like Rashi, that it's out of order. It is in exact order, the Zohar says, and it is an exact, and it is not like the Zohar, and like the Alter Rebbe says, it says you don't have to even relate it to the sin of the golden calf. You know why it's there for? Because that's when the people realized that they're never going to be tzaddikim, and God told them, you don't need to be tzaddikim in order to connect to me. How do you connect to me? Go out in this world and change the physical world and make it a godly place.
One mortgage contract at a time.
Exactly.
How does the Rebbe he deal with the, I know there is a midrash, that before Chet HaEgel, God said, אני אמרתי, אלוקים אתם. That means that before Chet HaEgel, you did the atonement and you're not going to die. יש מדרש כזה, that, and only after Chet HaEgel, God command on this. So how can you connect it to this in a way?
This is exactly what happened. Before Matan Torah, the Jewish people reached the level of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right.
The only problem is that they died. That was the problem. They reached that level. They reached the level of Nadav. They reached the level of Avihu. But the practical problem, they couldn't be here in this world and continuously reach it. They could have said...
That's what they're supposed to do.
They could have said to Moshe, you know what? We want all the 10 commandments. We don't mind dying and going back and forth. But they said, no, this is too much. We got the point. We had a taste of what a tzaddik is life. It's enough for us. Now you go and do... So, but he says, but we still want the connection. We felt the connection and we need it. So Moshe says, you do have the connection down here in this world. And that's what the building of the Mishkan makes sense. That's what you see, that way becomes even stronger. You still have the connection. You have the connection. It's true you don't feel it, because if you feel it, you know what's going to happen. You're going to die again. But you have the connection in this physical world, and that's your job. Your job is to take the me that is in the physical world and elevate me to godliness. According to Zohar and Rashi, the whole inyan of the Mishkan has nothing to do with the Jewish nation. It has to do with the sin. It has to do with their sin, which is very hard to say. That's not a joyful place to be, that's right. According to Rashi, the whole inyan of the Mishkan is to atone for the sin. And according to the Zohar, the whole inyan of the Mishkan is to bring the medicine before the plague.
Sounds very medieval.
And by the Rebbe, the whole purpose of the Mishkan
has nothing to do with the sin. That's the whole purpose of the Jewish nation from the beginning.